You can follow the show on twitter.com/Dave Simon MMA. We welcome into the show, as usual, Mr. Dave Simon.
You can also follow the show at twitter.com/Ringside Report as well. I don't plug that enough, but twitter.com/Ringside Report.
Do I have to follow it?
Yes.
I can't just follow Dave Simon, MMA?
It's like an automatic type Twitter feed. So
of the articles and such?
Yeah, anytime anything gets posted on our website, at Ringside Report tweets it. So it's pretty good. So if you
got
missed
the
actual
show handled Ringside Report. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I've had it for a while.
What was the thinking behind splitting the Twitter handles?
The Ringside Report one came first, and I decided to do a Dave Simon MMA one when I actually figured out how Twitter worked. Because, Twitter was around for a while, but I wasn't really on it. And then I got my own when I decided, all right, maybe I'll try this Twitter thing out. So, yeah, I worked it that way.
We're talking intimate social media here with Dave Simon.
Yeah. This is fascinating stuff. Happy Hanukkah, by the way.
All right, same to you. Now, let us get...
What are you? This is a festive season for us,
man.
I
just came from 2 Hanukkah parties today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Latkes? How many latkes you eat today?
Too many.
Too many latkes.
Not good. Not good.
No such thing. Applesauce with those latkes?
Yeah. Little applesauce action.
Applesauce. Yeah. Wow, this just got very Jewish in here. I love it. Stefano's uncomfortable.
Oi, let's get back to some sports talk here on the show. MMA, Dave, big card last night.
Yes, UFC on Fox 5. Fantastic card on Fox.
By the way, I like that they're splitting it and calling this UFC on Fox 5 as opposed to UFC 872. I like that.
Yeah, well, the UFCs, those are the pay-per-views, right? And then there's the UFC on FX 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know where they're at now. I think 6 or 7. And then UFC on Fuel, they started a series there. And now the UFC on Fox, they number everything in the UFC. So the pay-per-views are when you see UFC 154, that was a pay-per-view, but for the Fox card, now it's UFC on Fox 5, Benson Henderson beating Nate Diaz last night, a dominant performance from the UFC lightweight champion, a 5-round decision for Henderson. I scored it 50-45, all 5 rounds for Benson Henderson. Judges scoring it the same way. 2 of the 3 judges scoring it 50-45. One judge scoring at 50-43, giving a couple 10-8 rounds to Benson Henderson. A clean sweep for the champion. He busted up Nate Diaz's eye in the first round, and Diaz said at the post-fight press conference that affected him throughout the fight. He was waiting to recover and come back strong, but he just wasn't able to recover. His vision blurry pretty much from the first round, and Benson Henderson able to dominate him, able to out-wrestle him, outstrike him, and just beat him up for 5 rounds. I was thoroughly impressed with Benson Henderson, thoroughly impressed with Alexander Gustafsson as well, beating Shogun in a decision, and Rory McDonald, also impressive, decimating BJ Penn, a 3-round decision there for Rory Mack. So decisions in the main 3 fights, but very, very impressive fights. Great fights all around.
So you mentioned the eye injury for Diaz. Nonetheless, it still goes 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Impressed by his toughness?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Nate Diaz, we knew how tough this guy was. Nobody knew that his eye was as busted up and, that his vision was blurry until the post-fight press conference. He came in and he fought a great fight. He was very tough throughout, but Benson Henderson was just that much better, that much stronger than Nate Diaz. I predicted Benson to win because of his strength. I think that, skill-wise, they're pretty much on the same level, but Benson is just such a strong, athletic guy that he was able to outfight Nate Diaz. Very, very impressive performance from Benson Henderson, who I think needed to impress after 2 fights with Frankie Edgar. He won the title in a controversial decision, then had an immediate rematch, and the decision was even more controversial, winning a split decision against Edgar. So Henderson really needed a performance last night on Fox that would leave no doubt in anyone's mind as to who is the number 1 lightweight in the world, and he did that. He definitely claimed his spot at the top of the 155-pound division.
Chatting MMA with Dave Simon of RingsideReport.net. So we talk about UFC on Fox 5. In terms of how it was received, was the crowd in it all the way? Where did it take place? Is Fox happy with it? Dana White happy with it afterwards?
Yeah, I think everybody was happy with it. Fox, today the story coming out that on Fox the card averaged 3.41 million viewers, and it was the number 1 show in that time slot for males between 18 to 49, which is that key demographic. So the show,
not much more you could ask for.
Yeah, the show did very, very well. I'm sure Fox is pleased, and I think that it exceeded all expectations as far as ratings. The show took place in Seattle, Washington. It was a lively crowd from the start. They were happy to see their hometown guy, Benson Henderson, who was in kindergarten through high school, living in Seattle. So this was a homecoming for him, and the crowd was definitely into it, and the ratings did well. It was a huge success, I think, last night for the UFC on Fox. Maybe their most successful outing on Fox to date since they signed the deal last year.
All right, elsewhere, Dave, you and I talked about something, and I believe we touched on it on air last week in terms of another Diaz and involving perhaps GSP, and it looks like we're headed towards that way.
Yeah, as Dana White's saying this week that Nick Diaz is most likely the next opponent for GSP. He's just got to get Diaz to agree to the fight, and I think Diaz will agree to that fight. George St. Pierre asked for the fight. He took a little vacation after his victory over Carlos Condit, came back from vacation, spoke to Dana White, and I think Dana wanted to get that Anderson Silva fight down, but he realizes that maybe it's just not in the cards right now. I think that GSP wants it at 170 pounds. Anderson wants it at 177. And I think what George St. Pierre told Dana White was, look, I'm coming off an 18-month layoff due to injury. I came back. I had a really tough fight. I want to get my fighting legs under me. I want to have a couple more fights at welterweight before I decide to move up and fight Anderson Silva. And he asked for Nick Diaz. They have unfinished business. They were supposed to fight last year. Injuries kept that fight from happening. This is the fight that needs to happen right now for George St. Pierre. I've been saying it since he beat Carlos Condit. A week later, his coach Faraz Zahabi said the same things. A week after that, now Dana White is saying the same things. I agree with both guys, and I guess they agree with me as well.
But
Nick Diaz,
again,
GSP.
we're looking at a problem here in that he's not reinstated at this point. He's not licensed.
Right. Nick Diaz tested positive for marijuana metabolites in his fight earlier this year at the post-fight drug test, or maybe the pre-fight test. Either way, he was suspended for a year because it wasn't the first infraction, and he's going to be back and eligible to get licensed in February. And I fully expect him to get licensed in February, and then he should be ready to go against GSP. I think George said he needed maybe 5 to 6 months to get ready for another fight. So I think he could be ready to go by maybe March or April. And hell, there have been a lot of talks about a UFC card here in March. At the end of March, GSP Nick Diaz would be pretty cool in Montreal. So I think that it's a possibility right now that we could see GSP again here in Montreal fighting Nick Diaz. I'm not saying that for sure it's going to happen, but you look at the timeline, it's possible. I would say it's maybe a 60% chance right now on seeing that fight here at the Bell Center.
Is it a situation where the UFC is going to hesitate because of ticket sales not being absolutely snapped up right away the last time around? Well, some people will point to the fact that the ticket prices were higher this time around. That's why it didn't happen. So they ended up making more money anyway. But
yeah.
Do you think that might be something holding this staging here back?
At the end of the day, it's about how much money they make, right? So if they're making money, they don't care how many people are there. If they can sell 3 tickets for $10 million, that's what they'll do. And if they have an empty building, who cares? They still made more money. It doesn't matter how many people are there. It's just a matter of how much money they made. They made a lot of money when they came here last time. And they pretty much sold the building out. So I don't think it's going to be any kind of issue. And looking at the fight, I think that a Diaz fight against GSP would sell a lot better than the Carlos Condit fight. Diaz is a bigger name than Carlos Condit. He's been fighting bigger names for a long time, and I think he's got a bigger fan base.
Storyline build-up between the two, having not fought when they were supposed to. Yeah,
all those things play into it. So, yeah, I think it would sell very well. I think the UFC would make a lot of money. Anywhere they go with this fight, they're going to make a lot of money. It's a big money fight. Like I said, this is the biggest money fight for George St. Pierre outside of Anderson Silva. Outside of fighting Anderson, this is the most money the UFC can make off a GSP fight right now. So, it makes a lot of sense. They're going to make big money whether they do it here, whether they do it in Dallas, whether they do it in Toronto, wherever. They're going to make money off this fight.